Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch.
Out of all my family members, I think my mom's the most opinionated about me marrying Ed. My mom's issues with Ed has to do with age, and pretty sure there's more, but my mom and I haven't really sat down and talked about her issues. I'm not exactly that close to her, but I hope that she can be there for her daughter the way that she should be.
Okay, so she's been talking a little bit about her history, just some surface level stuff, except for this bit. But to review what she said earlier, she said one of her marriages was, I think she said a joke, that it was, she said, spontaneously, impulsively when they were in Vegas, maybe intoxicated, not quite sure. And then she also talked about her mom and how her mom is the most vocal person against Ed because mainly of age and they haven't talked. And while she's tearing up, she's talking about how she and her mom are not very close and that she's hoping that her mom will rise to the occasion and treat her daughter the way that she wants to be treated. And it sounds like that's an ongoing pain of hers, rejection, maybe neglect in general. I don't know.
She means the world to me. And I just want her to be happy. But you have taken care of her, and you have brought my baby girl back from a dark, dark place.
Okay, interesting. So we're hearing from Liz's mom that, I don't know if I showed the whole clip, but she was saying that she had some concerns about Liz getting back together with him, probably because Liz had told the mom and others what they had been through. They'd broken up 8 times within a pretty short amount of time, and he broke up with her 8 times. And just imagine hearing that your daughter has a partner that breaks up with her routinely every couple weeks, seemingly over really nothing. Just, I think, being jealous. I mean, at least we heard one incident where that was the case, and I think that that's what his identification was, his conceptualization of why they were having issues in the past. Well, he would also say that she's immature and that kind of thing. But anyway, so she was saying that. And by the way, yeah, so the mom was saying, I was recommending my daughter take a break and be single for a while before she re-engage with you. And I've talked about this before, but for whatever reason, I really can't figure out why this is common wisdom. It's not necessarily bad advice, but it's not particularly good advice because it doesn't really recognize people's attachment needs and also people's tendencies. Also, it doesn't recognize the problem. So let's say that she did that. Liz did that. She took a break. She somehow had the discipline, so to speak, to hold off, not re-engage with Ed, even though he might be pursuing or something. And then for 2 years, say, she really was single the whole time. Well, Liz's problems would still be there 2 years later. For example, Ed. Ed did not engage, according to him, in a relationship for 25, 30 years after his divorce when he was young, the mother of his daughter. So taking a break from a relationship does not mean that you spontaneously and miraculously just heal from all your relational wounds. The advice should be go to therapy because regardless of whether or not you engage with Ed or another relationship or you are single or whatever, that's the place where you're going to, in all likelihood, heal and get to know yourself. So I wish everyone would replace that. Whenever you have the impulse to tell a friend, maybe you should take a break from dating or from relationships, replace that or consider replacing that with, maybe you should go to therapy because if they're not in therapy, that will much more likely address the issue. So anyway, the mom was saying that. And I think that that comes from a place of selfishness, not consciously, but so if I'm Liz's friend and I hear this over and over and over again, and I'm sad and worried and hurting for my friend, and my friend is now considering getting back with Ed for the 9th time, I am going to be worried about that scenario. I am going to be worried about my friend. It's going to hurt me to see her do that. So it's a very convenient piece of advice for me to tell her not to do that and maybe don't have any relationships for a while, because that'll mean I don't have to worry about you and I won't feel the pain of you having hurts and breakups and, hopes and dreams dashed, that sort of thing. So I think that's where it emerges from. Just like, hey, take a break from relationships so that I don't have to deal with things. But what that does is it puts the Liz's of the world in a place where they're lonely. People don't engage in relationships just because. They engage in relationships because they're desperately seeking attachment security. And I feel like that element is completely lost on people. Like somehow it's just this choice you make. Maybe I'll date, maybe I'll marry someone. Like this is one of the deepest needs that we have as human beings, as evidenced by not only the show, but also our lives, right? We need attachments. We need closeness. We don't all need romance, but most of us do. We all don't need sex, but most of us do. We all don't need romantic relationships, but we need closeness. And particularly in our society, the closest type of relationship typically available to us is a romantic companionship relationship. So there's that. And when we recognize that, then you can't really just tell someone, hey, deny that need for the next 2 years so that I don't have to worry about you. That's essentially what people are asking. They're not doing that consciously. They're actually trying to help, but I think it's misdirected feelings of their own. Anyway, so then we hear the mom say that she's saying, thank you, Ed, for pulling her out of a very, very dark time. I wonder what that was. It kind of sounds like, given what we know about Liz, was it depression or something? I don't know. Was it demoralization? Was it an abusive relationship in the past? I don't know. But given Liz's tendencies, I wouldn't be surprised if it was depression and suicidal thoughts. The way the mom phrased it. Let's rewind that.
You have taken care of her, and you have brought my baby girl back from a dark, dark place.
You know what I mean? Usually when I hear Americans using that phrase, they are referring to depression and suicidality. I don't know that, of course. I'm reading into it, but I wouldn't be surprised. So that is information. I don't know what to do with that, but that is information for us, right? That for Liz, from our perspective, we might look, or many people might look at her and say, like, why are you doing this? Like, you're young, your whole life is ahead of you. Why are you in this relationship that isn't seemingly in your best interest and da-da-da? Well, for Liz, comparatively, this might be a lot better than where she's been in the previous 2 marriages she's been in. This is, I think, according to her, this is even though it's not great, it's better than her previous relationships. And even though this isn't great, I'm in a better mood overall than I was in the past. And this is something for us to think about in our own lives, that we might comparatively be in a better situation, but still not in an ideal situation. That doesn't mean we break up with the Eds of the world necessarily, but that we recognize that we deserve to actually go even further into wellness, that we shouldn't settle for not suffering. We should be actually thriving and being positive and having relationships that enhance our life and not being broken up with constantly or controlled regarding a jealous partner, that sort of thing. So that's just something to recognize.
Oh, you gotta make us all tonight. Cut it out.
I also think what's happening is Liz is touched by the mother paying attention to Liz. Given Liz's previous statements, I wonder if this is something that she's always wanted her mom to do, which is to protect her and to pay attention to her and to be an authoritative presence in her life the way she is right now. And Liz is, crying out of appreciation, of love, and maybe loss of, because that's often what can happen when your parents finally rise to the occasion. You can have a mixture of feelings. You can feel grateful, but you can also feel quite angry and hurt because you are reminded of the fact that this is a rare event, and so you can end up crying. As an analogy, I often will think a lot about the daycare that I grew up in and the things I observed, not only in the children were, so it was a home daycare, and I lived amongst all these kids all the time when I wasn't at school. The kids would arrive early in the morning, like 5:30 in the morning. I'd wake up, all the kids would be there. I'd go to school, I'd come home, all the kids would be there. Sometimes they'd be sleeping in my bed, and there wasn't anywhere I could go that the kids weren't. And then little by little, the kids would be picked up by their parents, and then by maybe 5, 6, well, probably I think 5 o'clock, the kids would be gone, because usually we ate dinner at 5 o'clock every night. When my dad came home, dinner was ready to go. Every night. It's just kind of weird to think, because like now, me and my wife, our eating schedule is pretty random, but weekends included. All 6 of us, me and my 3 siblings, my parents, sat around this round table every night, 5 o'clock, and we'd eat at 5:15 anyway. So when the kids would be playing, it'd be 4 o'clock or so, and the kids would be playing and happy, and my mom was so the other part of it was observing passively the way my mom, I would passively, it wasn't like I was observing my mother, but I just would pick it up that by the way my mom dealt with the kids, and she was just a master at entertaining them and corralling them and mildly disciplining them at times, because every new kid that came into the daycare had a different expectation of a lot of different things, right? They weren't used to having to deal with discipline or following rules, especially the rules of our house, the rules that my mom had. Anyway, so I observed that. And just my mom's ability to entertain, like her facial expressions and her voice. And she just is she's just like the perfect person for that. And all the kids were mainly between the ages of like 3 and 4, 2, 3, 4. And there were a couple, maybe 1 or 2 infants, because that requires a lot more work. Anyway, point is that they would be hanging out, having fun, because my mom would have got them to a place where they enjoy the daycare. Then the parents would walk in the door, and sometimes the kids would not see their parents walk in the door, because there were a lot of parents coming in and out. And then when they saw the parents, they would start to cry. Like, and I think that was part of it. That's a long tangent of trying to provide an analogy of like when we finally get what we've been longing for, because the kids, particularly in the beginning phases of adjusting to the daycare, would be, they'd miss their parents. It might be the first time in their life that they've ever been away from their parents, right? So when all day long, they just have this longing for being close to their parents again, and their parents would walk in the door and they'd be like, and then they'd just start crying, and it doesn't make logical sense, because you'd think they'd be happy, and many kids were like, oh, parents are here. But because they have sadness that they have not really been expressing it, they've been keeping it at bay. By the time they actually get what they are sad about, they're sad because they're being denied their parents. They finally get their parents, and then all the sadness just comes roaring out. And this is something to recognize for yourself, that when you are finally getting your parents or your partner or whoever to finally, even working hard to signal to them or ask them or whatever, to finally get them to pay attention to you, to be attuned to you, to care about you, to have compassion, to meet your needs. It can be confusing, because when you finally get that, sometimes you can break down crying. Sometimes you can even have, so another reaction I would see in the kids is they would get angry. Parents would walk in, and the kids were longing for the parents all day, and they would get angry at the parents. They'd say like, ugh, and they might run away and say like, out of rejection, or they might say, where were you, or whatever, some kind of anger response. And we can get into attachment and different styles and that sort of thing. I don't know if it really tracks on exactly to those reactions precisely. We could make some, so just on that topic, if you're avoiding attachment, and of course I don't remember details like this with the kids, is the parents might walk in and the kids might notice the parents but not really care. They may be like, oh, parents are here. Anyway, playing with toys. It's not a slam dunk indication of avoidant attachment, but it isn't a potential indicator. Or if the person's preoccupied, then you might have those 2 reactions of the massive amounts of crying or the anger response. But again, even I think securely attached kids might have that response as well. And also securely attached kids might also be a little indifferent to the parents coming in, because they're just really enjoying themselves playing with the other kids and the toys and stuff. So, but it would be an indicator. Anyway, point is that, and then disorganized kids would freeze, right? Because the secure base has arrived, their parents, but also the parents are the source of the fear. So the disorganized people will freeze in place or decompensate or flop or freak out, because they have this neurological impulse to run towards the secure base, but also a neurological impulse to run away from the abusive person. And it happens to be the very same person, so they don't know what to do. And they, they're their neurology short circuits. When you finally are given your needs, you might have a variety of responses to it. You might get angry at the person, paradoxically, or you might cry and be really sad and have a tremendous upwelling of sadness, even though you're finally getting your needs met. So that's natural and that's okay, and you should just be able to recognize that, frame it, and maybe even explain. So just so you know, like, my sadness is not because I'm sad about you finally giving me what I want. It's I'm really appreciative of it, but I think I'm realizing now that I've been missing it, and I've had a lot of sadness. So, maybe there's some processing there, and maybe this will tell you how much I've been wanting this for a long time. No pressure. Or if you're angry, you can maybe differentiate and say, well, I probably shouldn't attack them right now because they're finally doing what I want them to do, and I don't want them to be disincentivized to do this again. So maybe I should process this anger another time, or frame it in a certain way, or even explain it to the person. So, okay, by the way, when you did that thing for me, which, I've always been wanting you to do, and I got a little snippy with you, it's because of this guy on Psychology in Seattle, this YouTube channel that I always watch. He was telling me that this thing might happen. Sometimes people will tell me that they do that. They'll explain and conceptualize things from my lectures. Also, I know a lot of couples will watch this channel together, which I find to be stellar. It's like, when I hear that, it brings me so much hope for people, because when you can do that, I think it shows that you're both willing to consider those things. And the amount of provocation of thought of just like, oh, did I do that? Is that what happened with my partner? And then being able to talk about it. Anyway, so that might be happening with her right now, which makes me sad for her, that she has been denied her needs in a variety of ways throughout her life. Okay, so if we think about that maybe for her, it's normal to her, it's been normalized to her that people not caring about her feelings is normal. And thus, when Ed gets triggered and starts to attack her, it feels normal to her, and then she doesn't take action because she doesn't think that she's entitled to take action, or that it's abnormal or something. And then we, the viewing audience, are going, what are you doing?
I am very grateful for that.
I don't think I've ever cried when my mom has opened up about her true feelings to me. My mom may have never been there to give me the life that she wanted, that my grandmother gave to me. But the fact that she loves me and just wants my happiness with Ed, it means a lot to me.
All right, I totally forgot. Wasn't that long ago that we saw that in the previous episode, that she said that she was raised by her grandparents, and that her father was never around, and that the mother needed to take care of another sibling, is the way she framed it, which I remember at the time saying in the reaction video that doesn't sound like the whole story, which is fine. Liz doesn't have to talk about the whole story. Plus, she probably doesn't want to throw the mom under the bus. I think I said in the episode, usually that means drug addiction and drug abuse that will lead to a young parent figuring out, I can't take care of both of my kids or my child, and so grandparents are there to help with that. Let's not assume that, of course, but I'm just telling you from my clinical experience, that's often the case. And of course, the drug addiction is a result of trauma, and you think well, what did the mom go through with her parent? I don't know.
I'm very shocked to have her blessing. Welcome to the family.
Thank you so much, you guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
To everybody, to love.
I'm sorry you chose me.
I'm not.
So Liz has done this a number of times. That's a joke and it's funny, but it, I think, reflects, sometimes we joke about things that we really believe. And she said a number of things that have indicated that she actually feels unworthy of Ed, that she feels like he is dating below his station or something. And that also could inform why, at least it looks like, we can never know, but it looks like she puts up with things and doesn't value herself within this relationship, or maybe any relationship. And so when she says things like that, it's like, Liz, that's not fair to yourself. You are definitely worthy, as anyone else would be, And you're certainly worthy of being treated well and of a relationship that meets your needs and a relationship that doesn't break up with you 8 times. All right, well, that is it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.